will now be an opportunity for a silent prayer or meditation. Thank you. We may be seated. I will now ask the Secretary to read the order.
Debate on vote number 18, Correctional Services, Appropriation Bill.
I will now invite the Honorable Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, Honorable Masuta, to lead the debate.
Chairperson of the House, honorable members of Parliament, Deputy Minister of Correctional Services, Mr. Thabang Makwetla, Deputy Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Mr. John Jeffrey, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services, Dr. Matole Mutsecha, Acting National Commissioner of Correctional Services, Mr. Zek Modise, it's much thicker today. The Judicial Inspectorate of Correctional Services, Judge Tembekile Skweyiya, and congratulations for your recent appointment. Chairperson of the National Council of Correctional Services, Judge Siraj Desai, Chairperson of the Medical Parole Advisory Board, Dr. Ramatisile, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, ex-offenders and parolees present here, and all are welcome. It is a great honor for me to have this opportunity to account to this august House on work done with the budget allocated in 2014-15 financial year, as well as to outline our plans going forward. Allow me, Madam Chair, to spare a moment to remember the passing on of Isitwalandwe Ruth Mompati, who departed this month. Her leadership and character will continue to inspire us to work harder to realize the ideals outlined in the Freedom Charter, which she, together with many heroes and heroines of our movement, strived for. We must also bow our heads in honor of 8 officials that tragically lost their lives in an accident in Swellendam on 5 May 2015. This embodies the character of an ideal correctional official enunciated in the White Paper on Corrections, and we wish the injured official a speedy recovery who was involved in that accident as well. These are true Africans whose lives must be celebrated together with the marking of the Africa Month, during which we reaffirm that we are African. The coordination within the criminal justice cluster has improved and continues to impact positively on the work of correctional services, affirming the wisdom of integrating under one Ministry of Justice and Correctional Services, which this portfolio has become. Collaboration between criminal justice partners has resulted in continued down management of remand detainees, which contributes towards a more humane incarceration of inmates, with 47.192 in March 2012 to 42.901 in March 2015. The number of sentenced and remand children has decreased drastically. In 2009 turn financial year, 497 children were awaiting trial, whilst 538 children were sentenced, as compared to 129 awaiting trial and 243 sentenced in 2013-14 financial year, respectively. The National Development Plan implores us to invest appropriately and build comprehensive partnerships to close the proverbial revolving door by limiting chances of offenders relapse into a life of crime. We will introduce measures for tracking rates of recidivism, which currently has not been scientifically determined. The delivery of correctional services is a labor-intensive enterprise that survives and thrives through its staff. Our focus is to ensure sufficient capacity to handle complex offender rehabilitation and development issues. Our staff is the catalyst in correcting offending behavior to help build a safer society. During my walkabout in correctional centers throughout the country, I observed ineffective recruitment methods, which we now need to address. We will therefore launch a 4-month recruitment campaign aptly named Operation Hira, Kasha, Tapa, Tola, which will contain the following deliverables. Firstly, building partnerships with academic institutions, CETAs, other state organs, and professional bodies for heightened collaboration in accessing databases of qualified people with scarce skills. 2, each regional commissioner and branch head will be expected to sign a performance agreement to reduce their vacancy rate by at least 80%. 3, recruiting 3,096 unemployed youth for our leadership training programs at our colleges to contribute in fighting youth unemployment and building hope and trust in a better South Africa. 4, organizing a series of job fairs across the country to expose the unemployed youth to career opportunities within correctional services. The department exceeded its target of training officials by 48% from 16,500 to 24,548. We will train a further 18,000 officials this financial year. We've made progress in administrative leadership stability in correctional services. A chief financial officer assumed duty on 1 April 2015. Interviews for the positions of a national commissioner and chief deputy commissioner for strategic management have been conducted for the recruitment result, and the recruitment results will be announced in due course. The filling of other management positions is at an advanced stage as well. Utilizing state-of-the-art technology to improve the efficiencies of our correctional system is seen as a critical game changer. In this regard, there are a number of projects which will help us ride the waves of technological advancement. We have secured services for phase 1 of the installation of body cavity scanners in 14 correctional facilities this financial year. This will help minimize the smuggling of unauthorized items into our facilities. In November 2014, we unveiled a new audiovisual system installed in 53 correctional supervision and parole boards nationally. This innovation brings services closer to the people and helps in bridging the digital distance and poverty barriers to victims and community participation in parole hearings. We will continue to improve its utilization going forward. The introduction of the groundbreaking electronic monitoring system, the EMS, which was launched in July 2014, marked another milestone in modernizing of correctional services. Since its rollout, cumulatively 1,009 people were tagged, and currently 604 persons are monitored through this system. EMS has enabled the department to effectively track an offender or an awaiting trial person effectively on a 24/7, 365 basis. During the 2015-2016 financial year, at least 1,000 people are tagged at any given time. The current parole dispensation has been in operation for almost a decade. I have deemed it necessary to review the parole system to, among others, strengthen the recruitment and retention of highly skilled professionals, to boost the capacity of the Correctional Supervision and Parole Boards, CSPBs, like criminologists and psychologists. B, victim and community participation and empowerment with a more proactive stance to ensure their involvement in parole hearings. C, partnerships with institutions of higher learning to assist in developing a scientifically proven risk assessment tool, which is offense specific, to support the decision-making processes of parole boards and capacity building programs for CSPBs. This include UNISA and University of Johannesburg. D, capacity building programs for CSPBs and introducing mandatory programs that cover, amongst others, interviewing techniques, motivational interviewing skills, restorative justice, and victim support services. During the 2014-15 financial year, progress was made in advancing victim participation in the parole system in line with the Criminal Procedure and Correctional Services Acts, which provide a framework for the consultation of victims of crime in parole considerations. Our commitment is to ensure effective social reintegration with more involvement by victims, families, and communities. We highlight the increased parolee and probationer compliance levels in South Africa. Of the 71,623 daily average community corrections caseload, 51,634 are parolees and 18,545 are probationers, whose compliance levels are at 98% and 95.92% respectively. This was done through the establishment of community corrections satellite offices, as well as service points managed in collaboration with stakeholders. These interventions help build credibility and public trust in the system, increasing more non-custodial sentencing by the judiciary. We know that restorative justice was the hallmark of the African traditional justice system, which sought to repair harm caused by crime in human and social relations. For over a decade now, government has championed the implementation of the restorative justice model as an integral part of broadening access to justice and enhancing active citizenship across the criminal justice continuum. In order to improve victim and community participation at various stages of corrections, the department introduced the Victim Offender Mediation and Dialogue and and thus far 1,541 victims and 3,738 offenders have participated in this restorative justice initiatives in the last financial year alone. We plan to increase these levels to 6,000 victims in the 2015-16 financial year through a comprehensive and electronic database of victims, driving a national awareness program and empowerment of victims of crime. This is in line with our new policy thrust that seek to bring the victim back to the center of the criminal justice system and take them away from the periphery of the system. Corrections is key to building a healthy nation, hence we ensure humane conditions in our centers. I have worked together with the Minister of Health to align our efforts of addressing the country's disease burden, which is as much a responsibility of correctional services as other key role players. The President declared a 3-year intensive campaign to eliminate TB, which is rated as the leading cause of deaths from natural causes in South Africa. 2009-10 to, my apologies. We have pledged to work in tandem with every role player to ensure that 90-90-90 target is achieved in respect of testing, placing of inmates on treatment, and improving the TB cure rate, building on our current TB cure rate of 83%. The strategy includes a continued rollout of the Genie Expert and digital X-ray machines, as well as SMS printers that deliver fast and reliable results to enable speedy interventions. On the HIV and AIDS front, there are demonstrable positive results as 79% of the inmates in our care have undergone counseling and testing sessions. Honorable members, in November 2014, I established a task team to revitalize and conclude on political prisoners. The task team has taken stock of the scope of work, starting with the restorative justice elements of the program, including victim and family consultations, as well as engaging NGOs and political parties affected. The known applicants are those who have completed their sentences those placed on parole and those still incarcerated. The work of the task team will be completed in due course, after which the ministry, in consultation with the presidency, will give an update to the people of the Republic. Public confidence and trust in the country's correctional system is critical for the creation of enduring partnerships between state and civil society. We cannot allow the continued negative audit findings to place doubt on our commitment to clean governance. A turnaround strategy is being consulted with various key players to turn the tide, covering the restructuring of the finance branch, tightening asset management, and improving internal control measures in order to resolve audit qualifications on assets in 2015-16 and achieve a clean audit within this term. Expenditure on consultants has been reduced by 55% from 170 million rands in 2009-10 to 76.8 million rands in 2013-14, which translates to 93.8 million rands reduction. The department's stance of zero tolerance to corruption is well known. Over the past few years, Correctional Services has been rated as the third best institution of government with appropriate working capacity to deal with corruption. The department continues to build on its achievements of the first 2 decades of freedom by reaching a 95% conviction rates last year at its 49 disciplinary hearings against officials fingered for fingered for fraud and corruption. The department dismissed 19 officials after these hearings, most of which were concluded within 3 and 6 months, respectively, despite delays caused by officials who try every means to avoid facing disciplinary processes. 3 of the 47 officials found guilty resigned, whilst 13 received sanctions, including suspension without salary as alternative to dismissal, and 11 received final written warnings. The acid test for the country's correctional system is the successful social reintegration of offenders as law-abiding citizens. To this end, the department has successfully partnered with state agencies and departments, non-profit organizations, academic institutions, non-governmental organizations, and other relevant external stakeholders to broaden the scope and reach of interventions to correct offending behavior. These partnerships have, in the 2014-15 year, led to 76 parolees being employed permanently by the Working on Fire program. To smoothen offender reintegration, 212 parolees and probationers were provided with startup tools to enable them to open their own businesses and thereby contribute to employment creation. These partnerships are expected to add more employment opportunities for parolees in the current financial year, and further partnerships will be built. The employability of ex-offenders is a key indicator of successful reintegration. In November, interactions, former offenders who have remained law-abiding citizens for years have raised the matter of criminal records and their detrimental effect on successful social reintegration. Given that the 2008 amendment to the Criminal Procedure Act, which came into effect in May 2009, has effectively seen its 6th year this month, it is perhaps time to open the dialogue on a possible further amendment that will give more offenders a second chance in life. The idea is not to compromise public safety, but to enhance it as an overriding drive. In this regard, I will be convening a national consultative conference on criminal records this year. One big challenge in South Africa is food insecurity. This challenge tends to reflect the historic special development patterns and racial dimensions. The overwhelming majority of inmates belong to the lower ranks of socioeconomic makeup of our society, meaning the supplier communities have similar deficiencies. Our facilities are making good progress towards self-sufficiency and sometimes constitute an island of affluence in a sea of poverty relative to the surrounding communities.
If you
Correctional
can
Address
conclude, Honorable
will adopt
Minister.
a particular community and share their expertise in food production developed over the years. They will teach communities modern and advanced methods of food production and expose unemployed youth to technical skills such as furniture making, motor vehicle repairs, and construction. Each management area must ensure that its centers are an integral part of the integrated development plans of
Will you
municipalities
please wrap up?
and provincial administrations. Thank you very much, honorable members, for the opportunity, and I hope our plans will enjoy your favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Sebakeng se re tlo mema modulasetulo wa committee go tšwetša pele polelo ngangišano mohlomphegi Motshekga.
Honorable House Chairperson, Honorable Minister Michael Masuta, Deputy Minister Thabang Makwetla, outgoing Inspector Judge of JICS, Judge Vuga Shabalala, incoming Inspecting Judge Tembile Skweya, Acting National Commissioner Date Modise, Advisory Board Dr. Ramathisela, Honorable Members of Parliament. Honorable Minister, the African National Congress support this vote and and we hope that Honorable Wilmot James will not lead his faction out of the House this afternoon. The ANC inherited a brutal penal system consisting of prisons, not correctional facilities. Prisons that were specially and ideologically designed for retribution and political repression rather than correcting criminal behavior. The institutional violent culture and legacy bequeathed to us has meant that there are many challenges and we have had to contend with now. These are foremost the challenges of overcrowding and recidivism. Overcrowding is an old problem that was inherited from the apartheid regime. Incarceration rates per 100,000 of the population has far improved under the ANC government. For instance, in March 1983, there were 105,634 prisoners out of an estimated population of 24 million in South African prisons. Honorable Speaker, Chairperson, I'm not making these numbers up. This is the figure given by the Apartheid Minister of Justice, Mr. H.J. Kutsi, on 25th April 1983 in the House of Assembly, this House. This 1983 figure translates to a ratio of 424 prisoners per 100,000 of the population. This excluded the homeland areas of the time. The present number of people in South Africa's prisons is 155,000 prisoners of 54 million South Africans. This translates to a ratio of about 290 per 100,000 of the population, about half the population in prison in 1983 when considering the population size. We realize that these numbers are still high and support the Department of Correctional Services in implementing its white paper on remand detention, particularly 49G of the Correctional Matters Amendment Act of 2011 and Section 63A of the Criminal Procedure Act, both which, is that a walkout? Both which seeks to minimize the time spent in remand detention for remand detainees. The committee also supports the Department on expediting electronic monitoring, as this may help to ease the prison population. Recidivism is also a product of non-existent rehabilitation and social reintegration programs under colonial and apartheid governments. For the colonial and apartheid governments, rehabilitation meant slave labor in privately owned farms and mines. For the ANC government, it means enrolling eligible inmates into education and meaningful skills, acquiring programs which will contribute to their social reintegration. The DSC aims to enroll into educational and skills programs 80% of eligible inmates in the medium term. The ANC-led government has worked hard to try and transform South Africa's post-apartheid penitentiary in a manner that reflects the ethos and values of a free society and the Constitution. We have introduced legislation and policies that seeks to transform the prison into spaces of corrections, rehabilitation, and social integration. This has been a progressive task starting from the Constitution, legislative interventions, and policies which seek to guarantee the human rights and dignity of inmates. Through the passing of the Correctional Services Act in 1998 and the adoption of the White Paper on Corrections and the White Paper on Remand Detention in 2011, South Africa now complies with the international agreements and best practice standards on the rights and treatment of inmates. To ensure that the ANC is serious about this transformation, the Judicial Inspectorate of Correctional Services, headed by a retired judge, was established to play an oversight role and report on the conditions of imprisonment in correctional and remand detention centers. We wish to thank the outgoing judge, Justice Vuka Shawalala, for the role he played over the past 3 years, and welcome Justice Thembi Lesquia as the new head of JICS. Given the oversight role that Judicial Inspectorate plays over the DSC and on the conditions of imprisonment, it is important that over the medium term, its financial and administrative independence is reviewed with the aim of improving its effectiveness and efficiency. On key focus of this budget vote is the key focus to this budget vote is the cumulative implementation of the Criminal Justice Review 7-point plan and the National Development Plan as articulated in the medium-term strategic framework 2014 to 2019. The DSC's strategic and annual performance plans are aligned to the NDP and the medium-term strategic framework. The department linked its strategic objectives with specific outcomes of the National Development Plan. These are outcomes on the economy and employment. The department could create more jobs through filling its vacancies and improving the DSC's effectiveness and efficiency, improving education, training, and innovation. The provision of education and skills-based training of inmates could contribute to rehabilitation and social reintegration initiatives. Promoting health, the department is obliged by law to maintain humane conditions for incarceration. It could contribute to this obligation by improving the health care of inmates and limiting exposure to communicable
Honorable
diseases.
Motshekga, check your screen on the left.
Honorable Chairperson, I'm happy that even our traditional howlers today were impressed by this budget vote and they behaved well. We welcome that change.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We now invite Honorable Self to continue with the debate.
Thank you very much indeed, House Chairperson. I would like to begin by associating ourselves with the condolences that the Minister extended to the families of the officials who died or who were injured in the horrendous car accident near Swellendam. The position of the Department of Correctional Services in the criminal justice system is grossly undervalued. The DCS is not directly mentioned in the National Development Plan and rates only in a footnote in the 7-point plan. The department is also undervalued by the Portfolio Committee. Only twice this year has the department been invited to brief the committee, and that, in our view, is a further reason why there should be a separate parliamentary committee for correctional services. Yet the department must house, feed, and guard people whom the courts have sent there for safekeeping. It must correct offending behavior and rehabilitate offenders who are very often violent and antisocial. Slightly more than 42,000 staff of the department perform this dangerous and often thankless task. To them, and particularly those who work in the sections and the centres, we wish to thank you for a job well done. Unfortunately, there are still many officials who steal rations and who smuggle drugs and cell phones into prisons. Yet, according to the annual report, and the Minister referred to it, only 82 officials were charged with theft, bribery, fraud, corruption, or any combination thereof. We know that the figure is much higher. Recently, Mr. George Geweld Thomas, a member of the 28 gang, was convicted of multiple murders, some of which were committed on his instructions while he was in prison. According to testimony in the trial, he made 33,000 cell phone calls, planning crimes while in prison. This would not be possible without the assistance of corrupt officials. Those officials are accomplices to murder. They need to be found, arrested, and convicted. We repeat our call to block all cell phone calls from prisons. If they can do it for Parliament, they can do it for Pollsmoor. We can find these officials and punish them, but the situation needs to be tackled holistically. At the moment, despite commendable efforts by officials, most offenders emerge from prison more criminalized than they were on admission. This is because of a combination of understaffing and overcrowding at centre level, which creates a situation in which gangs thrive and officials can be corrupt. It is a situation in which proper rehabilitation becomes impossible. The staff working in the centres have to cope with serious overcrowding. Over 2/3 of our prisons accommodate more inmates than they were designed for, and some, like Polokwane, Mossel Bay, Grootvlei Medium A, Thohoyandou Medium B, and Mdasani, are more than 200% overfull. That means that inmates share beds and sleep on the floor. And that does not conform with Section 7 of the Correctional Services Act that the Honourable Motshekga said puts us in line for international best practice. We simply have to reduce the number of people who have to be locked up. Let there be no doubt, violent and dangerous offenders should be locked up, and very securely for a very long time. But not all offenders belong in prison. A prison sentence, however short, is likely to result in that person losing his or her employment, in remaining unable to find employment again due to criminal records, in being stigmatized, in broken relationships, and frequently in being coerced into joining a prison gang and participating in its activities. It is no surprise then that the levels of reoffending are so high. That does not mean that people who break the law should not be punished, but the punishment need not involve imprisonment. There must be a suite of alternative, non-custodial sentences that can be handed down, particularly for non-violent first-time and young offenders. There must be ways of releasing people whose bail is less than R1,000. Less crowded prisons lessen the influence of the gangs and promote effective rehabilitation. In that respect, we welcome the Minister's announcement of a conversation around second chance legislation. We believe that a criminal record is a powerful inhibitor to people being reintegrated into society, and we would encourage that conversation. But the most effective way of releasing people responsibly is to use electronic monitoring mechanisms, which were announced with great fanfare a year ago. Then the project ground to a halt because of allegations about the procurement of those devices. We were told that the matter, which allegedly involved the department's chief operating officer, was being investigated. That was over a year ago. Minister, what has happened to that investigation? And when will its findings be released? But we also need to increase staff at the centres. The department has slightly more than 42,000 funded posts. On average, there are about 160,000 inmates in prison on any given day. That works out to a 1 in 4 official to offender ratio, which is very good by international standards. But that is certainly not the ratio in the centres. The reason is that there are too many administrators at head office, at the regional offices, and at the area offices, and not enough officials at the sharp end of the business looking after inmates. Despite years of talk about the migration from administrative posts to the centres, there has been far too little action. This has been worsened by the 7-day establishment. I think we need to admit that the 7-day establishment hasn't worked, and that what it has led to is further understaffing, particularly over the weekends. The effect of the shift system, combined with annual leave and sick leave, can mean that less than 1/3 of the staff in any particular centre are actually on duty. Ultimately, sooner or later, all offenders will be released back onto our street. If the DCS fails in its task, those offenders will reoffend. If we want to break the cycle of crime, we need to ensure that the DCS is properly resourced and that the resources are employed in the right places for the right purposes. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Self. Siyaqhubeka simema manje Honorable Maxon.
Thank you, House Chairperson. The EFF objects to Budget 18 of Correctional Services and believes that there is nothing correctional about its allocation. The department's mandate is to ensure that those that exit the correctional service are rehabilitated individuals, but who can be reintegrated into society, yet 13 billion is allocated to incarceration and only 1.2 billion on rehabilitation. It is no surprise that the repeat offenders rate is so high. The budget allocation on the maintenance of and well-being of incarcerated offenders, which includes healthcare, nutrition, and hygiene, is even more shockingly low. Very few of the educational programs for child offenders have been re-registered as full-time schools, let alone meet the norms, standard, or targets set in relation to inmate participation. The targeted 11,372 participants seems ambitious and unrealistic. If the department's ultimate performance indicator will be the number of offenders successfully integrated into society without reoffending, then why does it spend the least of its budget on social reintegration? It simply defeats logic. But the ANC government has mastered the art of talking left while walking right. The objective is to rehabilitate and reintegrate into society, but the department's own budget allocation intends to spend more money on incarceration against its own objective of rehabilitation and reintegration programs. It comes as no surprise that this department of supposedly correctional service is the champion of poor performance and instability, with over 2,000 vacant posts at senior management level, including a national commissioner and chief deputy commissioner in strategic management. Moreover, it is 9.6% behind its spending. Where is the good story to tell, good people? We must transform correctional services to include compulsory education and training for all prisoners, but this won't happen if more money is allocated to incarceration. At least 29.5% of the current prison population are in jail simply because they could not afford bail as little as 1,000, which directly contributes to overcrowding in jails. We have raised this in the Justice Committee and we raise it again here. The bail system must be abolished. The bail system must fall. The Correctional Service Act must be amended to incarcerate people per crime with the creation of specialized separate prisons, separating awaiting trials, petty crimes from dangerous offenders. We must consider other correctional systems that worked in other countries, like in Sweden. Swedish prisons, which through its corrective systems has reduced its prison population from 5,722 to 4,500 out of a population of 9.5 million, forcing government to even close some. Hey, we must learn from these countries. Of course, this can only be possible if the private ownership of jails is ended with immediate effect, of which I doubt, because we love capitalism in South Africa under ANC government. There is a clear evidence of the failure of privately run prisons, which cost more, and often certain companies like G4S with questionable business interest.
Maxon, ngibawa uqale ngiyaku left yakho. Screen sakho. Ngiyathokoza.
There is nothing corrective in this budget, hence EFF cannot support its plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kwanje sisirakela embili nasimema umhlonishwa Msima.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. In a country which is sometimes referred to as the crime capital of the world, its people tend to look to their institution of correctional services for the secure incarceration of offenders, their rehabilitation, and for those who are released, their reintegration into society. The IFP experiences that this is a far cry from what happens on the ground, since the department is one of the most poorly run in government. There have been over 1,115 complaints, a high number of suicides, and over 10,719 cases involving the use of force. The department's emergency support teams also need to be reviewed as they failed to implement recommendations for improvement made in 2013. Assaults on inmates are also rampant, yet there is no clarity as to whether these are mostly done by officials or inmates, and there are no internal investigation reports. The Auditor General's report for 2013-2014 is very damning. In fact, it is littered with disclaimers and qualifications. For instance, there was no trace of tangible capital assets worth 73 million rand, while systems of financial and risk management and internal controls were not maintained. Correctional services employees were also found to be involved in remuneration work outside their employment without written permission from relevant authorities. And in some cases, they failed to disclose business interests in contracts awarded by the department, which went to family members or partners. The lack of leadership within the department has ensured that inaccurate reports on financial information were submitted to the National Department, which continue to expose major weaknesses in the financial processes. Overcrowding in our prisons is appalling. We can concede that this is aggravated by the failure of the Department of Public Works to deliver new facilities on time. However, DCS should put more pressure on Public Works to deliver, because at the end of the day, it is DCS which bears the brunt. Continual overcrowding within prisons is responsible for many ills, including the spread of communicable diseases such as TB, HIV, and AIDS. Violence is also prevalent, specifically sexual assaults of vulnerable offenders, as the DCS lacks the capacity to screen for offenders who are vulnerable to assaults and thus does not protect them. On top of that, it is still unclear as to whether any investigations had been reported to the police and what those outcomes were. This is a labor-intensive department where strict management is imperative to eliminate maladministration. Yet the department is not winning the fight against corruption. And the very large number of vacancies also contributes to the department's poor performance, with some key posts remaining vacant for up to 2 years. Without proper personnel in strategic positions, the department will continue to fail in meeting its objectives. Thank you.
Sithokoze. Sirakela phambili sibiza manje umhlonishwa Mncwabe.
Honorable Chairperson, honorable members of the House, distinguished guests, Minister, Deputy Ministers, honorable judges present here, ngizwile uhlale bala ubaba uMshengu, ubaba abameli bonke abamnyama bakhona, and honorable judges square. Chairperson, the budget for the Department of Correctional Services is one of the few which are increasing year on year. Yet it remains one of the more troubled departments on which we have to vote on for the budget approval. The allocation of more than 20 billion rand is substantial and requires stringent, transparent, and accountable management. The allocation of 18% of the total budget to administration of the department is, in our opinion, excessively high, particularly so since the department is very vague on how the money is to be prioritized and spent. We are concerned about the unrealistic targets the department has set for its administration program and the lack of clear outcomes against which the outcomes of this program can be measured. We also express our concern at the continued problems surrounding the maintenance of infrastructure, despite the large amount made available to the department on a yearly basis, coupled with the persistent overcrowding experienced not only on those convicted, but also on those who are waiting trial. We urge the department to use the 13 billion rand it has allocated for incarceration program wisely to address the serious challenges of crumbling infrastructure and perpetual overcrowding it faces. The National Freedom Party shares the concern of the Portfolio Committee with regard to the lack of commitment the department is showing towards rehabilitation and social reintegration of prisoners who have served their time incarcerated in correctional facilities. It is in the interest, Chair, of our country as a whole that every effort must be made to rehabilitate and successfully reintegrate former inmates. We need to do whatever necessary to reduce the number of inmates in our correctional institutions and encourage former inmates to become well-adjusted members of our society. In light of this concern, we urge the department to reconsider its approach to funding of rehabilitation and reintegration programs in the future. In conclusion, Chair, ulimi lomzali, despite our express consent, the National Freedom Party has no reason to reject this budget, as long as it will be used wisely. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mngabe. Ons gaan voor met die debat en noem achtbare lid Groenewald. Is dat hem? Nee, ons is nog niet daar nie. Oh, sebakeng se re tlo bitša Mohlomphegi Mothabo. Pardon me?
Ke sa maketše.
Excuse.
Ke a leboga modulasetulo. Ke re Mohlomphegi, our Honorable Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, Advocate Masuta, Deputy Minister responsible for Correctional Services, Mr. Thaba Makwetla, Minister Naledi Pando, other ministers and deputy ministers, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, Dr. Advocate Mutsera, and honorable members of Portfolio Committee, executive management and personnel of DSC, JICS, stakeholders of the Department of Correctional Services, ladies and gentlemen, fellow South Africans, ke a dumedisha. Honorable Chairperson, let me start by conveying my condolences, like our minister, to the families of 8 correctional officials who were killed in an accident. And we also wish the 2 officials who were critically injured in the same accident a speedy recovery. Chairperson, let me start by giving the highlights of the Department of Correctional Services. The appointment of CFO and Internal Audit Committee for the first time. This will go a long way towards improving the DCS financial management and internal control environment. Chairperson, again, let me respond to Honorable Self. In the issue of overcrowding, DCS intends reducing overcrowding by 3%. And let me tell you, it's not true that the Portfolio Committee is undervaluing correctional services. We did oversight at Mataje in Limpopo and Kutama Sintumule. Unfortunately, DA members were called back because, as you know, as usual, DA has got its own things and issues. Honorable Chairperson, on the issue of overcrowding, Honorable Self knows very well that there are tools in place to fast-track court trials, as he knows of Section 49BG of the Correctional Matters Amendment Act, and again Section 342 Big A of Criminal Procedure Act 1977 as amended. There is an obligation on courts to investigate any delay in the completion of proceedings which appear to be unreasonable and may cause substantial prejudice. Chairperson, there is also efforts by the department to include upgrading of existing facilities to create additional 518 bed spaces in 2015-2016 and 4,787 by end of 2017 and 2018. Our President, Jacob Gedlehle Zuma, in his State of the Nation address, which he delivered, announced the launch of a program to fight TB and spread on
of infectious diseases among inmates in correctional and remand centers. In 2014, focus had also been in the area of health care for inmates, prevention of HIV infection. Honorable Maxine Tlengiwe. Maxine, I just call you honorable because I'm compelled. I don't even want to waste my time.
Order, Chair.
Honorable Maxwell, what's your point?
What does that mean that she is calling me honorable because she's compelled?
I believe that you can discuss that later.
But
It's
she
not
is
a
saying
point
here in
of-
this platform, Chair.
Honorable member, please.
No, you must be
That's
neutral,
not a
Chair, when you're
point-
sharing
that's
this
not
thing.
a point of order.
No, it's a point of order.
No.
She can't just insult me and then she gets away for all but that. She must
Honorable
clarify.
Maxson, I did not hear any insults. Thank you. Continue, honorable member.
Ke a leboga mohlomphehi
On
modulasetulo.
a point of order, Madam Chair. Please, ma'am.
Honorable Lekota,
Please, ma'am, sustain the decorum of the House. We are all expected in this House to address members as honorable. Not because we feel like, but because it is so, unless we have evidence to the contrary. The speaker there cannot say, I'm just saying it because I'm compelled. Otherwise, all of us will be dishonest with each other.
thank you, honorable Lekota.
She must withdraw that.
Thank you, honorable Lekota. Honorable member, the rules of this house compels us all to call each other honorable members. The order that was raised was why, and I can't explain. That's why I'm saying we'll talk about it later, but every member of this house is honorable. Thank you very much. Continue, honorable member.
Ke a leboga mohlomphehi modulasetulo. The Honorable Minister Masuta has stated categorically.
Madam Chair, please, madam. The speaker on the floor.
Honorable Lekota, you are not recognized. Please sit.
The Honorable Minister has categorically stated
Chairperson.
that the positions of National Commissioner and CDC strategic
Honorable
management.
Mutapo, please take your seat. Honorable member.
Chairperson, undade Likota ucele ubana ngaba ispeaker must withdraw. Before aqhubeke funeka aqala withdraw esa statement. She's not compelled.
Honorable
but
member.
that's a must.
Thank you very much.
She
Sit
must
down.
withdraw.
Honorable member, I think I have ruled on that issue, and I gave my reasons why I don't follow your instructions. Can we please continue? And if there is anything, please, you know what to do. Continue, honorable member.
Ke a leboga. I was saying the Honorable Minister Masuta has
On a point of order, Madam
categorically
Speaker.
stated that the National Commissioner position and
Madam
CDC
Chair.
strategic
Honorable Lekota, you are
management.
recognized. Honorable Mutapo, please sit.
Madam Chair, procedure. Please,
Honorable Lekota, on what point of order are you raising?
I'm on a point of order that the present speaker must withdraw that she said she is not calling this lady honorable because she's honorable, but because she is compelled. I appeal to you, Madam Speaker. She must withdraw that comment.
Honorable Lekota, I think I explained myself. Please sit down, Honorable Mutekha, you are not recognized. I think I explained myself as to why I don't call for a withdrawal. I don't have to go back on that. And please, can we continue with the debate?
Okay. Thank you. The Honorable Minister had categorically stated that
Chair.
National Commissioner and CDC strategic management position have been advertised and
Chair.
the
Honorable
candidates will be
Mutapo.
notified in due course.
Honorable Mutapo, would you please sit? Thank you. On what point of order are you raising?
On the very
Honorable?
same point that I'm being undermined by this person. If you
Honorable
continue,
Maxson.
Chair, if you
Honorable
continue to allow
Maxson.
this,
Can
we
I
have
stop
no
you just
problem
there?
to insult all of them. We are capable of doing that.
Honorable
We are
Maxim,
appealing to you as the chair to be neutral when you are sharing.
I think I
Because you are
explained-
not the ANC chairperson. You are the chairperson of this house. Then we are
Honorable
equal
member.
to you, all of us. But if you continue sharing the
Honorable
meeting,
member, would you please sit?
rest assured, we are going to insult them. It's just a warning.
Honorable member, wait, Honorable Mutapo, take your seat. Honorable member, I don't want to take this into a debate. The issue is when you raise points of orders, raise points of orders. Don't start debating and giving some explanation. That's why I ruled the way I did. And you cannot come here, Honorable, and now do the same and say, this person. I'm not going to entertain that. I'm allowing the debate to continue, please. This person, we are all honorable members. So please learn to raise points of orders and you will be responded to. Thank you very much. Continue, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Chairperson, if we have safe and secured correctional centers, we are able to ensure that our people are safe from criminals in the community. This will be in line with the National Development Plan's vision and target for 2030 for building safer communities. The vision for the NDP is that all people living in South Africa should feel safe at home, at school, and at work, and they should enjoy a community life free of fear. Women should be able to walk freely in the street and children play safely outside. Chairperson, as the ANC, we support this budget of the Department of Correctional Services, which is in very good hands of Honorable Masuta and Honorable Deputy Minister Tabang. Bjale ka ANC re re moshito o tswela pele bjale ka mehleng o tla no dula o tswela pele bahloi le bagadikane ba tla tshwama re le ge re sepele ke a leboga.
Ons noem nom agbare lid Groenewald vat die debat vorentoe.
Agbare voorsitter, ek wil vir die agbare minister sê en ek wil nou maar sê ek sê vir hom agbare omdat ek verplig is om dit vir hom te sê. Dat die minister openbaar baie duidelik dat daar dubbele standaarde is as dit kom by parool. Ek wil dit dadelik baie duidelik stel. Niemand keer goed dit wat Clive Derby Loos gedoen het nie. En hy moet tronkstraf uitdien daarvoor. Maar agbare minister, as dit kom by die parool aansoeke, dan hang die politieke onderrok van die minister uit. Want as ons byvoorbeeld gaan kyk na die geval van Shabir Shaik, dan sien ons dat Shabir Shaik het maar 2 jaar en 9 maande uitgedien van sy vonnis en toe kry hy mediese parool. Hoekom? Want hy het buitengewone hoë bloeddruk. So hy is ook eintlik terminaal. Dis eintlik wat gesê word as ons na die wet gaan kyk. Maar hy gaan speel golf. Hy gaan doen sy inkopies en met sy hoë bloeddruk gaan speel hy ook golf met sy hoë vriende in hoë poste. En dis hoekom hy parool kry. Hy kom nou en hy doen aansoek om te sê maar sy mediese parool moet nou verander word na gewone parool. Hoe arrogant kan jy wees? Met ander woorde, hy sê eintlik, ek het nooit eintlik iets bekeer nie. Maar die parool word toegestaan. Maar as dit kom by Clive Derby Loos, agbare voorsitter, dan kom die minister en hy sê, in die eerste plek het hy nie eintlik dokumente in terme van mediese verslae wat in die naam van Clive Derby Loos is nie. Ten spyte daarvan dat die agbare minister presies weet dat korrektiewe dienste hom aangeraai het om in die hospitaal opgeneem te word, nie onder sy eie naam nie. Op aanbeveling van die departement. En die minister kom hoogheilig en hy sê maar hy sien niks fout met Clive Derby Loos nie en dat hy nog vir homself kan versorg waar hy beweeg in die gevangenis. Maar hy is in die hospitaal. Agbare minister, en u sit met 'n glimlaggie daar. U beïndruk my nie. U is 'n persoon wat dubbele standaarde toepas. U politieke onderrok sleep agter u aan soos 'n tooisel van 'n bruid. Dit is hoe dubbelsinnig u is en dubbelstandaarde wat u het. U strek nie die ministerskap tot eer nie. En ek wil vir u sê,
Honorable member, can you hold on a bit? Can you take your seat, honorable member? Honorable Mutsa.
Ek wil net weet of dit parlementair is om die minister te bedreig en 'n vinger aan hom te wys.
Thank you very much, honorable member. Can you, honorable member, please don't point fingers to the minister? And can you speak through the chair?
Honorable Chair, may I address you on your ruling?
Yes, honorable member.
Are we now having a ruling that we are supposed to put our hands in our pockets when we speak? No, we don't. I would suggest that you allow the member to speak the way he speaks. That's his way, and the honourable chairperson should listen as well.
Honorable members, can we please not point fingers to other members, and can honorable members speak through the chair? Thank you very much. You can go on, honorable member.
Agbare voorsitter, ek wil vir die agbare Motseka sê, hy is deur mekaar. As ek die agbare minister wou bedreig het, dan sou ek vir hom 'n vuis gewys het. Sê ek sal vir jou reg sien. As ek nou die agbare minister wys, dit sou ek nog altyd praat in hierdie huis, en dan was nog nooit 'n probleem gewees nie. So ek sê vir die agbare minister, ek sê nie ek gaan vir hom reg sien nie. Jy moet die lyftaal reg verstaan. Agbare voorsitter, ek wil 'n beroep doen op die agbare minister. Minister, raak ernstig. U is die persoon wat besluit oor parool in die finale instansie. U moet billik wees, u moet regverdig wees. En as u dit is, dan sal u sorg dat Clive Derby Loos wel sy parool kry. Ek dank u.
Thank you very much, honorable member. I'm now calling upon the deputy minister to address us.
Madam Chairperson, our Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, Advocate Michael Masuta, honorable members of Parliament, and in the interest of time, may I respectfully acknowledge all distinguished guests at this budget debate this afternoon. Some moons ago, the General used to be a very lovely gentleman. I don't know what is happening to him lately, that he's now waving fists from this podium. Chairperson, the debate this afternoon on Vote 18 seeks to reaffirm our commitment as the ANC-led government that we will continue to strive for the realization of the South African dream, as eloquently articulated in the renowned Freedom Charter, which, to quote the inspirational legend of South Africa's freedom struggle, Walter Max Sisulu, was adopted by the most historic multiracial assembly ever in South Africa, based on the demands of the people throughout the land, unquote. Whilst we made progress in transforming the state in terms of its representativity, orientation, and its role, argues the ANC in its strategy and tactics document adopted in Mangaung, I quote, "We continue to have challenges of state capacity, strategic coherence, the orientation of the public service, and the capacity to effectively implement policies of change and monitor and evaluate such implementation, thus impacting on our ability to decisively effect broader social and economic transformation," unquote. An ongoing priority of the Department of Correctional Services, which will characterize work over this medium-term strategic framework period, is the endeavor to realize the vision of the White Paper on Corrections as adopted in 2005. This new vision advocates for the positioning of the department as an establishment of centers for rehabilitation, community corrections, and the successful reintegration of ex-offenders back into their communities. In the intervening period, the department has made courageous efforts to strengthen strategies to break the cycle of crime, strengthen security risk management, provide an environment for controlled and phased rehabilitation endeavors, provide guidance and support to offenders within the community, provide corrective and development opportunities to offenders, enhance the productivity, capacity of offenders, promote healthy family relations, assert discipline within the correctional center environment, among others. As the preamble of the white paper correctly and patiently explains, the main challenge of the Department of Correctional Services is to translate the vision of the white paper on corrections into operational activities, pertinent financial programs that are appropriately financed, unquote. This is critical work in progress as the department continues to fine-tune these programs and develop a structure that is fit for purpose, but which is also appropriately funded. The current budgets for rehabilitation and community corrections and reintegration are still woefully inadequate. Honorable members, one common impediment to attaining efficient business management in all organizations is the absence of requisite information management systems. The Department of Correctional Services is one of the relatively big entities within our government administration. By its very nature, because it deals with human lives and safety and security, its business relies on volumes of information which must be reliable, accurate, and available in real time for decision making. The department has identified the urgent need in this financial year to prioritize among its support processes the design and deployment of smart technologies for its information management systems. At a push of a button, for an example, we must be able to establish as to which township in Soweto has the biggest number of inmates in our correctional centers, the categories of crimes they have been sentenced for, their age profile, and the period in which those crimes were committed. This will go a long way in assisting partnerships in crime prevention and community corrections. Honorable members, at the top of our intra-department business value chain resides the remand detention function. One of the key indicators of the efficiency of the criminal justice system is the proportion of remand detainees to sentenced offenders. Experts acknowledge that when the ratio of remand detainees versus those serving sentences is high, the poorer is the functionality of the criminal justice system. In this regard, South Africa is on the right track, with remand detainees constituting 27% of the just above 159,000 inmates in our custody, which is below the global average of 32%. With the resources constraints at our hand, the department has commenced the implementation of the policy dictates of the white paper on remand detention management. The department has commenced the rollout of special uniform for remand detainees. Thus far, 56 remand detention facilities have the requisite uniform. This initiative is the first in the history of corrections in Southern Africa. The remaining 59 remand detention facilities will receive uniform during the 3-year rollout program to ensure that security risks, hygiene challenges are eliminated. The department has also introduced a risk classification tool in selected remand detention centers. The results of risk profiling remand detainees will assist in ensuring that the detainees are properly housed and that vulnerable persons are better protected. Furthermore, we have great appreciation for the continuous reduction of remand detainees who have spent 2 years or more awaiting trial due to regular referrals to the judiciary. Chairperson, our mandate is to ensure safe and humane custody for inmates. There are clear indicators for our success or failures in this regard. Rates of overcrowding, unnatural deaths, violence, including gang activities and escapes are some of these indicators. One important area of our work, which is crucial in determining the incarceration landscape in South Africa, because it decides the extent to which human rights of inmates can be observed and the extent to which rehabilitation and correctional interventions are realized, is infrastructure rollout. infrastructure delivery is decisive in ameliorating chronic overcrowding in our correctional centers. Regrettably, this program continues to underperform due to a malady of managerial deficiencies and irregularities straddling both the Department of Public Works as the implementing department and the Department of Correctional Services as the customer. 6 contractors appointed by the Department of Public Works on major Department of Correctional Services projects have been liquidated since 2012, causing massive delays and cost overruns affecting no less than 1,366 bed spaces, which by now should have been at the disposal of the Department of Correctional Services. Contractor competence was in certain instances overlooked in favor of lowest bidders in spite of the complexity of the projects. Several large contracts were awarded to the same contractors in some instances. Lengthy implementation timelines were in projects initiated in 2009, in some cases are still not implemented in 2015, including tenders that are allowed to lapse in some instances twice or thrice without being awarded in order for work to commence. Chairperson, the South African dream will not lie in ruins. We dared to dream because as a people we are a product of protracted, tenacious and selfless struggle for freedom. We were never delusional. We knew too well that the march to conquer the next summit ahead will just be as tough and brutal as the one before. Even so often, the detractors of the governing party opportunistically seek to blame every wrong in our government bureaucracy on the ANC.
Deputy Minister. Honorable Deputy Minister, I'm sorry your time has expired.
I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Minister. I'm calling upon Honorable Likota.
Thank you, Chairperson. All protocol observed. Madam Chair, some of us have been customers of this department for many years and may be able perhaps to throw some light on this matter. If our correctional service is to succeed in its task to reduce criminality and contribute to safer communities and a stable country, we must create conditions in which life outside of prison is more attractive than inside prison. I may just say, if in prison, prisoners enjoy 3 certain meals, have secure accommodation, and the citizenry outside is in shacks in which there's water when it is raining, in which there's no certainty of a meal in the morning for the father, the children, and so on. It will be so that it is not intimidating, it is not frightening, it is not uncomfortable to be a visitor of the department. And the first problem in this matter is that there is such a high level of unemployment in the country. Many of these young people who have no responsibilities are better and find life better in there. Yes, you go into the townships, you talk to them and all of that, and they will tell you. That's the hard reality of it. Even if they try to steal an orange or something, and then they are locked up, the departments must feed them. Look at this. We are spending 66 billion rands to keep prisoners fed, clothed, and all of that. We're doing that. Now, those things they have access to, the ones who are outside don't have access to. And it's better for them, they say so actually. It's better to be there. We spend time with people in the prisons, and these are the things. So if we don't deal with the issue, the issues of linked departments to complement each other. It can't be a silo. It's got to be linked with the others. Then there's the question of administration. We spend 66 billion to keep the prisoners. And then for administration, 11.8 billion. You know, the former minister, Pravin Gordhan, constantly said it's so crucial that we cut down on the size of the administration so that we direct the resources to the issues we have to address. But if 11 billion goes to administration and only 66 billion that, you can see the balance is such that you can't say you are giving priority to this. The third point is, what are we doing with the prisoners to prepare them for life outside jail? Because if they leave jail without some skill or other that they can rely on in numbers, requisite numbers, that when they get there, they are able to do something to survive. If they don't have those skills when they get there, they will be back the following days, I promise you. Because train them. That's what I'm talking about. I'm saying redirect the resources, not into your pockets, but into the pockets into training the prisoners. Educate them, train them, give some skills so that when they go out, they have some skills to survive outside.
Honorable Likota,
if you don't do that,
Honorable Likota,
then of course, you know,
Honorable
you are preparing them to come back.
I'm sorry, your time has expired.
Oh, is that so?
Yes.
Sorry.
Look at
I didn't hear you, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I'm calling upon Honorable Bongo.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister of the Correctional Service, of the Justice and Correctional Services, Honorable Deputy Ministers present, Minister Naledi Pandor, thanks for the commitment of attending Parliament. Members of Parliament, distinguished guests, fellow South Africans. The Freedom Charter aspires for a South Africa in which the purpose of detention will not be punishment but re-education as a correctional measure. However, it cannot be said that the Freedom Charter refers to the detention of a tried, convicted, sentenced and remand detention. On the other hand, in such a complex matter, because of the guilt of the detained will still be determined or established by the courts. In other words, the presumption of innocence is strained by the remand detention. Honorable Self raised some issues here before us. What I want to say that the issues that we have raised, Honorable Self, we have heard them, but they are a plagiarism of the programs that we have as the African National Congress, and they're also a plagiarism of what Justice Correctional decided in the case of S versus R, where the learned judge raised the issue of the two types of offenders, those who must be sent direct to prison and those who must still be reintegrated to society. So your plagiarism is well accepted. And as the African National Congress, we have introduced, in response to what you've raised, the Integrated Justice System Project, which entails the re-engineering of business processes throughout the justice process. For an example, from arrest to prosecution, from prosecution to imprisonment, parole, and rehabilitation, that will be fast-tracked. We have, Honorable Self, 5 key integrated areas that we have prioritized, and inter alia is prioritization of integration of all departmental case-related systems in and across the police, NPA, Justice, Legal Aid South Africa, and DCS. The establishment of a single person identifier across the criminal system, reprioritization of the development and rollout of the person identification verification application. Honorable Magzone, who also refers to me as Mukwenyan, I cannot be Mukwenyan. I cannot be your
Honorable member, can you take your seat? Honorable member, can you take your seat, please?
Uyahlonishwa emzini, hlala phansi. Chair, I'm not Magzone, I'm Maxine.
Continue, honorable member.
Honorable Maxen, who also refers to me as Mkwenyan. I can never be your Mkwenyan, honorable member. How can a reasonable person of my status, ignore the beauty and wisdom of the side of the house for what I see there? How can a reasonable person in my position do that? I can't be. But on the matters that we have raised.
Chair, Honorable Chair.
Point of order, are you raising on, honorable member?
Yes, Chair. Is the Honorable Mkwenyana prepared for me to reveal what happened to that restaurant with that lady? Is he prepared?
Can you sit down, honorable member? Continue, honorable member.
Don't be disingenuous. But what we have raised here, I want to address you on what we have raised here. I think I've raised this matter yesterday, that we don't have time, Honorable Chair, to educate members in this side of the House.
Chair, Gitim Mkwenyana, please.
Member, can you please?
Can I reveal those photos now?
Yes.
Honorable member.
Yes.
Please respect this house.
Yes.
Please. Can you carry on, honorable member? Can you carry on?
What I'm saying that she refers to the issue of Sweden. And she says, as the African National Congress, we must...
Sihlalo. Mina bengithi akungasuke kwi-South Africa sizodlala lana. Ngoba angazi manje ngempela ukuthi ngena ukuthi ngempela ngabe useyala indodakazi yami na.
Ngicela uhlale phansi mama. Ayiyona point of order le uyiraisayo. Siyacela uba ihlonitshwe lendlu yowisomthetho. Enkosi kakhulu.
Thank you very much. She refers to Sweden. She refers to Sweden. And without knowing that the population of Sweden is 9 million. And in South Africa, we have a population of over 54 million. So you must do some research. Don't come here and just grandstand, you see. And you yourself, and Honorable Likota, we are speaking about...
Order, Chair. Chairperson, this member is having a problem of hearing. I have said on my speech, if you want a copy of a speech, I can give it to him.
Order. Can you please, honorable members, can you please let us carry on with the business that is in front of us?
Thank you very much.
Carry on, honorable member.
You see, in the African National Congress, what we need to educate members from this side is that we're not speaking about prisoners anymore. That was belonging to the past apartheid. We're speaking about inmates. Because we have realized the need to reintegration. Honorable Chairperson, Section 58 of the Criminal Procedure Act provides that when the bail is granted, an accused that is in custody shall be released from custody upon payment of furnishing guarantees to pay the sum of money determined by the bail. He must then appear at a place and on a date, time appointed for his trial, which proceedings relating to the offense in respect of the accused is released on bail. So bail is needed because of inter alia, what is raised in the Constitution in Section 65(1)(f) of the Republic of South Africa, which provides that everyone who is arrested for allegedly committing an offense has the right to be released from detention if the interest of justice permit, subject to reasonable conditions. Muhammad J., in 1991, in the case of Akeson, asserted that an accused cannot be kept in detention pending his trial as a form of anticipatory punishment. As the African National Congress, we support this budget debate. We support this budget debate, and what we like to say is to thank all the men and women who are in uniform, who continue to take the work of this department very serious, What we'd like to say is that the challenges that are faced by the department should not diminish the progress that we are making as the ANC-led government. Honorable Chairperson, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I'm now calling upon Honorable Swart.
Chairperson, the ACDP would firstly like to join other parties in extending our deepest condolences to the DCS, families and friends of the 8 officials who died recently in that tragic vehicle collision outside Swellendam. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. Now, as many members have indicated, overcrowding in prisons remains a challenge and is the root cause of health problems and the spread of diseases. We in the ACDP believe that Section 63A and 62F of the CPA must be applied to release those particular awaiting trial prisoners who are being detained at huge state expense and who do not present a danger to society. The question arises, when last were these provisions used and why aren't they used when we complain about overcrowding? Overcrowding also contributes to sexual abuse in prisons. We need to ensure that rape in prisons receives the serious attention that it deserves. The ACDP commends Sonke, Just Detention International and NICRO, who have partnered to increase public awareness of sexual abuse in prisons and those rape survivors who have told their stories. But much more needs to be done in this regard. Many wardens and prisoners are fully aware of what is going on. Silence in the face of evil is evil itself. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. The ultimate measure of this department's success is whether it succeeds in preventing reoffending. Regrettably, recidivism rates are not kept, and this is inexplicable. And surely, we also need to spend more on rehabilitation. The underfunding in previous years has been reduced, but clearly much more needs to be done. Chairperson, we from the ACDP also support the Minister's focus on restorative justice. This is an issue I have raised for many, many years. In my earlier years on the Portfolio Committee, restorative justice, which is indigenous, Chairperson, indigenous to South Africa, is something that needs to be promoted far more vigorously. And we also support the Minister's announcement about a second chance, re-looking at that whole issue. Chairperson, in view of the security breaches and high incidence of assaults and smuggling of contraband, the DCS should make better use of technology such as closed-circuit TV and cell phone jamming devices. It is very interesting that the Honourable Vincent Smith is not participating in this debate. He has strongly promoted these issues, and I would have liked to have heard a very experienced Member of Parliament also debating on this, but we fully support his views in this regard as well, and the committee has expressed its views, but no progress seems to be made in this regard. We also received a presentation from the Judicial Inspectorate for Correctional Services, and we still share the concerns expressed about the model, including, and we suggest that alternate models need to be looked at, including the Independent Police Investigative Directorate. Let's look at that model. Is it not desirable that the Inspectorate is dependent on the department for its funding? It must be an independent inspectorate to operate effectively. Chairperson, lastly, whilst this department faces many challenges, the ACDP wishes to thank all those conscientious managers and staff members who, under very difficult and dangerous conditions, diligently do their work in trying to ensure that offenders are kept in safe, secure, and humane custody and undergo rehabilitation programs. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I'm now calling upon Honourable Maila.
Honourable House Chairperson, Honourable Minister, Honourable Ministers present, Honourable Deputy Ministers, members of the House, all distinguished guests. Let me start forthright by indicating that the ANC supports the budget as presented by the department. My focus will be on rehabilitation and social reintegration as programs that may reduce recidivism, and overcrowding. It is a fact that a large portion of the budget addresses incarceration as opposed to rehabilitation and reintegration. The current prison population, the fact that the Department of Correctional Services is labor intensive, are circumstances that influence the budget trends. This does not, however, imply that rehabilitation and reintegration are not important. 60 years ago, the people of South Africa made a call that all shall be equal before the law. The Freedom Charter provides that imprisonment shall only be for serious crimes against the people and shall aim at re-education and not vengeance. As a means of promoting this ideal, the Correctional Services Act was promulgated, followed by the release of the White Paper on Corrections. This was an advent to a major policy shift. Rehabilitation and reintegration became a right rather than a privilege dependent on availability of resources. The ANC in the 53rd National Conference singled out recidivism as a problem caused by, amongst others, the quality of rehabilitation programs. Conference noted correcting offending behavior as a societal responsibility. Conference, in the same breath, resolved to mobilize communities to play a positive role in offender reintegration. Rehabilitation should target correcting offending behavior, personal development, and developing a sense of belonging. It should be an undertaking of both government and civil society. While rehabilitation should have a mark on the reduction of crime, it should also result in the promotion of social responsibility, empowering inmates with skills and the willingness to participate positively in the activities of the community. The department has its internal initiatives that are aimed at correcting offending behavior. These are inclusive of correctional programs, offender development, psychological work, social work, and spiritual services. The department continues to implement these programs, and that is why, as the ANC, we support this budget. Research on the success of these programs, so as to inform future planning, is also of utmost importance. And therefore, we urge the department that whilst we engage in budget processes, we should also face in the issue of research. We believe there is still room for improvement, but however, there are some practices which are worth noting. As a means of improving offenders' personal development through education, the department has established full-time prison schools. There were 14 such prison schools in 2014 as compared to only one in 2009. The matric pass rate in prison schools increased from 58.8% in 2013 to 68.9% in 2014. Mtonjeni Youth Center in Baviaanspoort obtained a 100% pass rate. This is commendable. Of course, this may not be the only tool used to measure success. Reintegration is a process that should start during the incarceration and continue after the release. The department has put in place a cost-effective electronic management system which will be implemented in line with the constitutional imperatives. This will have a direct impact on the reduction of overcrowding. The system will enable the department to monitor the movement of parolees, people out of bail, and those awaiting trial. The department is doing this under the guidance of the African National Congress. The African National Congress is leading, and the rest are following, as always. The role of the community in this case is of utmost importance. Successful reintegration should enable ex-prisoners to function well in society, to have acceptable behavior, and to avoid further conflict with the law. The stigmatization and the labeling of former inmates by community members does not assist the process. Government and civil society should embark on a joint effort to educate the community on their responsibilities. Offenders, on the other hand, should also be thoroughly prepared to make meaningful contribution to the community. We are making a call to the revival of the moral regeneration movement for the promotion of ethics so that partnerships between civil society and government in the fight against crime could be enhanced. Coming into the observations made by Honorable Bonga, it is true that we should compare our system with other countries. But comparing should also take into account the fact that we should be able to compare apples with apples. We should be able to check the heterogeneity of the population of a country. We should be able to check the levels of poverty in a particular country so that we can be able to make a precise analysis of what is happening. Honorable Chairperson, as I said earlier on, the ANC is fully in support of this budget vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I'm now calling upon Honorable Godi.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, comrades and honorable members. Comrade Minister, after listening to your speech, the APC supports this budget vote with hope because the issues that are of concern to us are within your radar for attention. We want to support this budget with the confidence that 12 months down the line, the department will be able to account fully for the funds under its management. It must be borne in mind, Comrade Minister, that for at least the last decade, the department has been receiving negative audit reports from the Auditor General. Whilst improvements are noted, we are not out of the woods yet. The APC appreciates measures taken to fill vacant posts. Leadership has been at the base of the management deficiencies in the department. There is a lack of stability which needs to be stopped if the department is to make progress. We appreciate the commitment to address negative findings. These findings are not new. They are repeats over a number of years, from asset management, misstatements in the financials, predetermined objectives, supply chain management, non-compliance with laws and regulations, poor IT control frameworks, expenditure management, deficient internal controls, etc. We also support the continued decline in the use of consultants in running the affairs of the department. We must build capacity within public institutions. You would leave a positive legacy, Comrade Minister, if the department could achieve a clean audit under your watch. Parliament expects it, and the Public Finance Management Act requires no less. The APC also passes its condolences to the families of the officials who lost their lives in the line of duty recently here in the Western Cape and wish a speedy recovery to the injured. And lastly, the APC calls on correctional service officials to serve the public and department with integrity and honesty, shun corrupt activities, mismanagement, and waste, and to report through appropriate channels any non-compliance with legislation. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I'm calling upon Honorable Riyadelenkes.
Madam Chairperson, our Constitution envisions a South African society built on freedom, fairness, and opportunity for all. The Constitution, in the founding provisions, indeed in the very first section, captures this very spirit of our post-apartheid South Africa. The country that South Africans dream of must be founded on the values of human dignity, the achievement of equality, and the advancement of human rights and freedoms. These values, these very founding provisions of our nation apply equally to every inhabitant in South Africa. Unfortunately, even a cursory overview of the state and effectiveness of our correctional facilities and programs reveals that this is not the case. Overcrowding, reoffending, assault, gangsterism, sexual violence, this tramples on human dignity. It makes a mockery of equality. It violates even the most basic human rights and undermines true and meaningful freedom. There are no two ways about it. Individuals who violate the law must be prosecuted, must receive a punishment that fits their crimes, and must serve the sentence that was imposed. We must hit hard against crime and even harder against its causes, which does include poverty. We can rattle off the statistics, and the members on my right can quote the law ad nauseum. The facts, however, speak for themselves. A persistently high vacancy rate, increased numbers of assault, escapes, and unnatural deaths in detention, the failure to provide any new beds in any correctional facilities, and a negligible decrease in overcrowding. It was noted in the Portfolio Committee that the current budget allocation for the department does not differ significantly from the previous financial year's allocation, which, and I quote, in itself means that some of the recommendations from different stakeholders and the committee itself has not been taken into account. There are no significant shifts in this budget to suggest a values-driven correctional services approach that prioritizes the rehabilitation and reintegration of offenders into society. The fact is that the budget still disproportionately focuses on incarceration, and indeed the budget for rehabilitation programs has been reduced. The social reintegration budget has been underspent, and the parole administration budget has also decreased. If this minister is serious about correctional services, he must put his money where his mouth is. There's a very clear misalignment between the priorities outlined in the white paper on corrections and this budget, and this has been the case for many years. Yes, the white paper on correctional services envisions a journey, and it is not simply an event, but it's a journey that is yet to commence, or at best is currently undertaken in a skorokoro. Correctional services continues to fail inmates, their families, their communities, and ultimately all South Africans. Successfully rehabilitated offenders, where possible, should go back to their families, back to their communities, and become fully reintegrated and contributing members of society. They, like all South Africans, deserve to be hard-working, freedom-loving members of communities who are given the opportunity to live and raise families and their children in safe communities, to support one another, work hard, play by the rules, and reap the rewards of their efforts to build a country where all of us make progress together. And this is, of course, the DA's vision for South Africa, a vision that is equally applicable to the role, mandate, and vision of correctional services that work. This is the DA's offer to the people of our country, which was reaffirmed at our recent Congress, where we elected a new leader. A prison sentence should not be a death sentence that kills careers, destroys families, and ruins futures. And yes, we know about and we recognize and appreciate the hard work, the dedication, and commitment of countless correctional services staff across the country. We also acknowledge and lament the appalling circumstances they have to work in and the significant challenges they face on a daily basis. These circumstances and challenges are not, and often not, of their own doing, but it is the result of years of neglect, a lack of political will, and the more recent demonstration by the ANC government that this department is a mere afterthought in the greater criminal justice system. There is no evidence to support the notion that a single ministry has resulted in any improvement towards a better integrated criminal justice system. If this was indeed the case, the president would have thrown in police and state security while he was at it. Of course, efficiency and actual delivery or progress was never the consideration or the motivation behind the composition of cabinet. The president and his friends they demanded more ministries, more deputy ministers, more jobs for pals, and a bigger patronage network to reward unthinking, uncritical, blind loyalty, as we often see on the Portfolio Committee. Indeed, in Parliament, where the merger of these two portfolios into one committee has had taken place, it has had a disastrous effect on oversight, on accountability and meaningful engagement with the department and officials. It was to be expected. After all, less oversight, less accountability, and less engagement is what the president prefers, wants, and is the example he has set throughout his tenure and in this house when it comes to questions. Minister, if I can request one thing from you today, it would be that you go back to Cabinet and to the President and ask him to end the protracted leadership instability and uncertainty in the department. We hope that you will inform him, request that he will get on with the process and appoint, at the very least, a permanent corrections commissioner to start, which is an overdue step in the turnaround process for this department. In conclusion, correctional services should be the final step in a truly integrated criminal justice system towards rehabilitation and social reintegration. It should not be the end of the road for offenders, their families, their communities, or the victims of their crimes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I'm calling upon Honorable Philani Mujake.
Yebo. Honorable Chairperson, the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, the Deputy Ministers, Honorable Tabam Makwetla, Honorable John Jeffries, all heads of entities of correctional services, members of parliament. Sometimes when you come into this house, you hardly understand really as to how to engage, because people come here and in a manner in which we engage on this debate, they're supposed to really approve the budget vote. You hear all sorts of stories, Honorable Riedling Hayes, talking about the cabinet, talking about all sorts of things that have got really absolutely nothing to do with this budget. You talk about leadership instability. Is it here? Is it in? Sometimes you bring up the Hawks. Sometimes you bring up SAPS. We continuously tell you in the portfolio committee that this is out of our mandate. But that's your line of discussion. And you actually have this illusion of instability. There's no instability. We are moving South Africa forward. The ANC is continuing to work. You can actually come up with all sorts of assumptions, because, you know, listening to you, there's so many assumptions and about a gang in prison who had 30,000 calls, and I'm asking myself, what was the source, Honorable Salve? You come with assumptions, you want to convince South African public that things are going on wrong on information that doesn't have substance at all. Let's not operate our work with assumptions. And then there's also assumptions that there are assaults in prisons where there's no investigation. I think it's a member from the IFP. Everything that goes on in correctional services, including the executive, including the portfolio committee, which, by the way, you sit in, takes it serious. Have you ever raised it in the portfolio committee that there are assaults that are not investigated? No. So let's not play games. Really, an Honorable Groenewald, why come here and point the finger at the minister? You are so full of anger. And you know what confuses this house half the time is that people behave towards business of parliament. And by the way, this is serious business of the electorate that we all are representing here. But you come here with anger. Anger is not really going to deter us from continuing to do the work. We will continue to do the work. In this case, we will continue to support this Department of Correctional Services that is here to really see to it that this mandate that they've been given of really helping South Africa to correct crime by incarcerating people who have offended, they will manage to carry out the mandate successfully. As indicated in the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development debate yesterday, South Africa, through ANC-led government, is serious about fighting crime and corruption, a goal that is achieved at a high cost, from investigation, apprehension, trial, and incarceration. Of course. The Department of Correctional Services budget is 20 billion rands. Honorable Credelin Hayes comes here and he says that the money that is being put is little. I don't understand why. And then Honorable Salve comes here, he says Why you don't have interest in the Department of Correctional Services, and this is why, therefore, you don't meet them quite often. These people are busy. You can't keep on calling them in and out of Parliament when you don't have anything substantive to talk to them about. The budget is 20 billion rands. That has been increased, by the way, from the 19.1 billion rands that was given in 2015. The budget is distributed across programs as follows: administration, incarceration, rehabilitation, and care. May I also take the opportunity of really welcoming the Inspector General of Correctional Services, Advocate Square. Unfortunately, you're coming into Parliament on this day when there is this kind of circus, but this is not what Parliament is all about. Parliament is about serious business. We're looking forward to working with you, and we are not going to be deterred by the comments that have been made that are negative about JICS, to say that we are actually not taking JICS independence serious. We take JICS independence very serious. We understand the fact that half the time everything in South Africa will be put forward as if everybody is supposed to be independent. Independent from what? Because there's got to be rules and laws and regulations that actually govern everything. But what the opposition does all the time is to try and advocate for independence. And of course, with the hope of really managing to control this that may sometimes become independent. No, I'm not angry. I'm talking to you. The finance, in terms of finances, we continue to commend the department for less use of consultants. That is much appreciated. In terms of performance, DCS is currently developing a turnaround strategy to deal with all challenges. The understanding undertaken with the committee is that the strategy should have performance contracts linked with the turnaround strategy that the department is actually working on to guarantee revolutionizing operations, because we're quite worried about the fact that the department has actually managed to get a qualified audit, something that we are hoping will be corrected, especially with the impending appointment of the Commissioner of Correctional Services. In terms of infrastructure development, okay, let me talk about infrastructure development. Of course, my computer has actually done the font, which we are actually expecting. When it comes to infrastructure development, we are quite worried about projects that have actually delayed. But one thing that is important is to ensure that the prisons that were actually, because now we're not talking about prisons, we're talking about correctional services. In the past, we had prisons that actually had appalling conditions that were supposed to incarcerate our inmates. For now, we are hoping
Honourable
that...
Member, I'm sorry, your time has expired.
We are hoping that the infrastructure will be improved to make the situation to be humane.
Honourable Member,
prisoners will be treated as
your
human beings.
time has expired. Honourable Member.
The ANC supports the vote.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I'm now calling upon the Honourable Minister.
Dank u, voorzitter. Graag Groenewald het een briefje aan mij gestuurd en vraag verskoning dat hij zal niet hier zo wees toe ik aan die eisen wat hij gesteld aan de antwoord. Maar nonetheless, I will say to him that unfortunately I will not take his challenge of responding to decisions that I made in my capacity as executing authority in the matter that he referred to, given the fact that the matter is before the courts on judicial review and therefore sub judice. What I would like to indicate to our honorable colleagues on the left is that sometimes it is useful to focus on the issues and not just oppose for the sake of opposing. You know, I've been sitting on these benches for the last 16 years, and I've been trying to follow what informs the stance, the political stance, especially of the main opposition when it comes to a range of issues that are debated in this House. And to this day, the only thing I have learned about opposition politics in this country is that somebody has given you instructions, stern instructions, that just come here and rubbish everything. That's all you need to do and nothing else. 16 years down the line, I am yet to hear something constructive, alternative, constructive ideas that can assist this country to move forward. Nothing. And of course, Honorable Lekota, his tone of voice rises and rises and rises, and you listen with anticipation, thinking that something of substance will emerge, and all you hear is the proverbial Shakespearean expression, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. How sad. But yeah, I am Eurocentric. You educated me well, eh? I can speak my mother tongue very well. I can speak your language, but you can't speak mine. How sad. But let's indicate to the opposition that, you see, one thing which is particularly sad about you is that you speak in two tongues. The president converges the two ministries into one, you complain. The president splits ministries in order to have dedicated focus on certain priorities, you complain. We introduce programs that seek to move away from just dumping offenders into prisons and focus on rehabilitation programs, you complain. We embark on programs that seek to transform the socio-economic conditions in this country, you rubbish them. What else will ever appease you that anybody does? Yes, thank you for telling the truth finally. The only thing you're interested in is the ANC government must lose an election and we must take over and run. Don't be too excited like little children now. Grow up a little bit. Now, the only thing you are interested in is to take over political power. But listen. The electorate has already given you an opportunity in the Western Cape to prove yourself. What have you done? You have left this province in racial tatters. Where are black people in the Western Cape? Completely marginalized. What provision are you making for the historically marginalized? You are just perpetuating apartheid in the Western Cape. Who wants apartheid to be applied throughout the whole of the Republic of South Africa? We will not allow it, and the electorate of this country will never allow you to mess up the rest of the country the way you did to this province. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Members are reminded that the debate on small business development and sport and recreation South Africa budget votes will take place at 17 hours in the National Assembly Chamber and the Old Assembly Chamber respectively. That concludes the debate and the business of this extended public committee. The committee will now rise.